They say behind every successful man, there's a woman. For me, that woman was Isabella, my beautiful, brilliant wife. She was there from the very beginning, helping me build Technova from a humble garage startup into a billion-dollar empire. She was my partner, my rock, my everything. What I didn't realize was that while I was busy building our future, she was busy orchestrating my downfall. It all began subtly, almost invisibly. Little things that you'd dismiss as nothing. A few unexplained withdrawals from our joint account here and there. Late nights she spent at her supposed art gallery, a place that, in hindsight, never seemed to have any visitors. Then there was her assistant, Mark. He was always around, a little too helpful, a little too present in our lives. But I trusted her completely. After 15 years of marriage, why wouldn't I? We were team partners in every sense of the word. The illusion began to crack during our anniversary dinner at the Ritz. It was supposed to be a celebration of our journey together. Instead, it became the night my world started to unravel. Isabella's phone buzzed incessantly throughout the meal. She excused herself to go to the restroom, leaving her Apple Watch on the table. As I sat there, a notification flashed across the screen. My heart stopped. Funds transferred to command account. $5 million cleared. $5 million. My blood ran cold. My hands trembled as I picked up the watch. I quickly typed in my own birth date, the simple passcode she'd used for everything since the day we met. The banking app opened, and the screen revealed a nightmare. $50 million. Gone siphoned from a joint investment account over the last 6 months, sent to offshore accounts I had never even heard of. When she came back to the table, her smile was as radiant as ever. I forced myself to act normal, to mirror her warmth. But inside, a storm was brewing. The rest of the dinner was a blur. I went through the motions, my mind racing, trying to piece together this horrifying puzzle. That night, sleep was impossible. While she slept peacefully beside me, I accessed our home security system. The very cameras I had installed for our protection were about to reveal a danger lurking within our own walls. I scrolled through the footage, my breath catching in my throat. There they were, Isabella and Mark. Not in a clandestine embrace, but something far more sinister. They were hunched over blueprints of the Technova headquarters. They had our home security codes, my private travel schedules, every detail of my life laid out before them. This wasn't just a betrayal, it was a conspiracy. The next morning, I decided to test the waters. I approached her gently, trying to keep the panic out of my voice. "Is everything okay with the gallery, honey? I noticed some large transfers from our account." Her response was flawless. Her smile was perfect, her eyes warm and reassuring. "Oh, that's just for the new contemporary wing. James, I told you about it last month. Don't you remember?" Her voice was so convincing, so full of love. For a split second, I almost believed her. I remembered no such conversation, no mention of a multi-million-dollar expansion. But I played along. I nodded, kissed her forehead, and told her I was heading to work. But I didn't go to the office. I drove straight to the address she had given me for her art gallery. My heart pounded against my ribs as I pulled up. What I found was a ghost building. The space wasn't just closed, it was completely abandoned. A thick layer of dust coated the floors, the walls were bare, and a faded for-lease sign hung in the window. A quick call to the leasing agent confirmed my fears. The sign had been there for 3 months. My wife hadn't been running an art gallery. She had been running an operation. And I was the target. Just as that chilling realization hit me, my phone buzzed. It was an anonymous email containing a single, terrifying sentence. "They're not just stealing your money, Jins. They're stealing your company and your freedom." I stood frozen in that empty, derelict space, surrounded by the echoes of my wife's elaborate lies. The woman I loved, the partner I had trusted with my life, was a stranger. The entire foundation of our life together was a carefully constructed sham, and it was all about to come crashing down. I wish I could say that the $50 million was the extent of it, but standing there, I had a sickening feeling that this was only the beginning. The real theft, the one that would threaten not just my fortune but everything I had ever worked for, was still to come. The game had just begun, and I had unknowingly been a pawn. But now, my eyes were open. They thought they had me cornered, that I was just a husband they could manipulate and discard. They were about to find out how wrong they were. The fight for my life, my company, and my future was about to begin. Thank you for listening. That very same day, I hired a private investigator. I wasn't looking for some flashy Hollywood type. I needed a professional. I found Frank, a retired FBI agent who specialized in financial crimes. His first report hit me like a ton of bricks, confirming my deepest fears. The $50 million. Gone. It had been expertly funneled through a maze of shell companies in the Caymans, before vanishing into an entity called the Artemis Fund. Frank's face was grim over our encrypted video call. Artemis Fund is a corporate raider, he explained, his voice low. They're known for hostile takeovers, but this feels different. James, they aren't just trying to acquire your company, they're building a complete mirror of it, using your stolen technology and your own client lists. Suddenly, all the scattered puzzle pieces started snapping into place. Isabella's frequent business trips to Switzerland, her newfound, almost obsessive interest in the technical details of my work, the questions about our patent filings and client contracts that I had naively dismissed as simple wifely curiosity. It was all a charade. That night, my hands trembling slightly, I installed sophisticated surveillance software on our home network. I needed to know the truth, no matter how ugly. What I discovered made me physically ill. For months, Isabella had been systematically copying files from my home office computer. Trade secrets, manufacturing processes, even my private journals where I'd brainstormed future projects and poured out my hopes and dreams. It was a complete violation. But the real gut punch, the blow that nearly knocked the wind out of me, came when I finally decrypted her chat logs with Mark. I had suspected an affair, a simple, painful betrayal, but this was so much worse. They weren't lovers, they were siblings. Twins, separated as children and reunited 5 years ago. And their intricate plan wasn't just about stealing my money. It was about revenge. Their father was Robert Sterling, my old mentor, my first business partner, the man I had supposedly betrayed 2 decades ago when I struck out on my own to start tech. The man I believed had died bankrupt and broken, a tragedy that had haunted me for years. Except, according to their chilling messages, Robert Sterling wasn't dead at all. He was the mastermind behind the Artemis Fund. And 4 years, he had been orchestrating this elaborate revenge, using his own children as his pawns. I decided to confront Isabella that evening, but not with accusations. I had to be smarter than that. I chose my words with surgical precision. As we sat in the living room, the same room where we'd shared so many memories, I said casually, "You know, I met with an old friend today." He mentioned Robert Sterling. It's a strange name to hear after all these years. Her face went bone white. The color drained from her cheeks in an instant. "Why? Why would you bring him up?" she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. I kept my tone light, nonchalant. "Oh, no reason. I was just wondering whatever happened to him. You know, he was like a father to me once." For just a fleeting second, the mask she had worn for 15 years slipped. I saw it, a flash of pure, unadulterated hatred in her eyes. "Some fathers," she hissed, her voice dripping with venom, "deserve better sons." And right then, I knew with absolute, heart-shattering certainty. Every single moment of our 15-year marriage had been a lie. The love, the laughter, the shared dreams. Even the way she had held me and comforted me when my actual father passed away, it was all just a calculated move in their twisted, long game of vengeance. The next morning, I drove to the office, my mind racing. There was one last thing I had to protect, our most valuable asset. I went straight to the secure server where we kept the source code for a revolutionary new AI system, Project Chimera. This wasn't just another project. It was the future. A system that could completely change global energy consumption. A system worth billions. My heart sank as I stared at the screen. It was gone. Not copied. Not stolen, completely wiped. Erased from existence. I scrambled to check the backup drives, a cold dread creeping up my spine. Formatted. Wiped clean. They had thought of everything, but they didn't know I had one more ace up my sleeve. For years, I had maintained a secret, off-site backup, a final failsafe stored in a high-security Swiss vault, a location known only to me. Or so I had foolishly believed. I grabbed my phone and dialed the Swiss bank, my hands shaking. The manager's voice on the other end was polite, but confused. "Mr. Sterling," he said, "you already transferred those files yesterday. Your wife co-signed the authorization." My blood ran cold. It felt like ice water flooding my veins. Isabella hadn't just stolen my present, she had stolen my entire future. Just as that horrifying realization hit me, the door to my office burst open. 2 armed security guards stepped inside, their faces stern and unreadable. "Mr. Sterling," one of them said, his voice firm, "we need you to come with us. There's been a report of corporate espionage." And standing behind them, a picture of false innocence and concern, was Isabella. She held up a small USB drive for everyone to see. "I'm so sorry, everyone," she announced to the stunned onlookers in the office. "James? He's been selling our technology to Chinese competitors. I have all the evidence right here." As they led me out of the building I had poured my life into, past the faces of employees who now refused to meet my gaze, I finally understood the true brilliance of their plan. They weren't just taking my company and my money. They were destroying my name, my reputation, my very identity. They were recasting me as the villain in my own story, but they made one critical mistake. They underestimated me. They underestimated how hard I would fight for what I built from the ground up, and they had no idea just how much evidence I'd already gathered against them. This wasn't the end. Oh no. The game wasn't over. It had just begun. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm going to tell you a story that sounds like it's ripped from a blockbuster movie, but I assure you, this was my life for the past few weeks. It all started when I was escorted out of my own company, Technova, by security. But they didn't take me to police headquarters like I expected. No. Instead, they drove me to a desolate, industrial warehouse on the city's outskirts. That's the moment a cold dread washed over me. This wasn't about an arrest, it was about making me disappear. The heavy steel door of the van slid open. "Get out, Sterling," the lead guard ordered, his hand already on his weapon. The air was thick with the smell of rust and decay. I knew this was it, but what they didn't know was that Frank, my private investigator and old friend, had been one step ahead of them the entire time. Just as I stepped out, the warehouse was flooded with the screeching of tires and blinding headlights. 3 black SUVs boxed us in, and men in full tactical gear swarmed out, weapons raised. Frank's private security team had arrived. The lead guard, completely stunned, stammered, "What's the meaning of this?" Frank stepped out from behind his team, cool as ever. "Corporate restructuring," he said, his voice echoing in the vast, empty space. "Mr. Sterling is reinstated as CEO, effective immediately." In the chaos that followed, with guards being disarmed and restrained, I slipped away. Frank had a safe house prepared for me. As the car sped through the city's deserted streets, I initiated an emergency protocol I'd secretly built into Technova's core systems years ago. A hidden kill switch, a last resort that could only be reversed with my biometric scan. From the safety of the hideout, I watched the dominoes fall. One by one, Technova's systems began to shut down. Our automated manufacturing plants ground to a halt. The servers that powered our global network went dark, and every single client interface, from small businesses to government agencies, displayed the same chilling message: "System suspended pending CEO authorization." My phone immediately blew up. It was a relentless storm of calls, furious board members, panicked major clients, even a call from a blocked number that I knew was the White House. You see, Technova's technology wasn't just for convenience. It powered critical infrastructure across the country: the power grid, communication networks, transportation systems. They couldn't afford for it to stay offline for a day, let alone an hour. But I had an even bigger problem. Isabella, my wife, had managed to transfer the contents of our Swiss vault to an unknown location. That vault didn't just hold money. It held the master source code for our most advanced AI project, Chimera. Without that code, even I, the system's creator, couldn't bring Technova fully back online. Frank arrived at the safe house later that night, looking grim. He dropped a thick file on the table. "It's worse than we thought, James," he said. "Your father-in-law, Robert Sterling. He never went bankrupt. He's been building a shell corporation, Artemis Fund, for 20 years, just waiting for the perfect moment to strike." He showed me the photos. Robert, alive and well, living a life of luxury in Monaco under a false name. The man I had mourned, the man whose legacy I thought I was honoring, had been meticulously planning my destruction from his Mediterranean villa. My mind was reeling. "But why now?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Why wait 20 years? Frank pointed to a document in the file, a blueprint of sorts. "Project Chimera," he said. "It's not just an AI system, James. It's the key to something much bigger. Something at a government level." The scale of the conspiracy was staggering, far beyond simple corporate greed, and that's when she found me. As if on cue, Isabella walked right into the safe house. No forced entry, no struggle. She walked in like she still owned half of everything, which I guess. Technically, she did. "We need to talk, James," she said, her voice devoid of any emotion, cold and all business. "You've triggered the kill switch. You're hurting innocent people." I couldn't help but laugh, a bitter, hollow sound. "Innocent? Like you, Isabella?" She ignored my comment and placed a folder on the table between us. "My father didn't betray you, James," she stated flatly. "You betrayed him. You stole his research. You patented technology that he developed. It was the same old accusation, the one I thought we had put to rest decades ago in a courtroom. The courts disagreed. Isabella, the patents are mine, fair and square." Her composure finally cracked. "Because you lied under oath," she snapped, her voice trembling with suppressed rage. "You destroyed his original research notes. You paid off his lab assistants to change their stories." I stood up, needing to face her, to look into the eyes of the woman I had shared my life with. Even if any of that were true, and it's not, does it justify 15 years of lies? Does it justify trying to destroy everything we built together? Tears welled in her eyes. But they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of pure, unadulterated rage. "You took everything from my family, James. We're just taking it back." She slid a document across the table. It was a divorce settlement. It wasn't a negotiation. It was an execution order. She wanted 70% of Technova, full and exclusive rights to Project Chimera, and our primary residence. "Sign it," she said, her voice dropping to a menacing whisper, "or I release the evidence of your so-called corporate espionage to the federal authorities. You'll spend the rest of your life in a maximum security prison." I picked up the document, the heavy paper, feeling like a death sentence in my hands. I looked at her, at the cruel smile playing on her lips, the same beautiful smile that had once captured my heart. "You really think I'd sign this?" She leaned forward. "I think you'll have to. Because if you don't," she paused, pulling out her phone, "your sister pays the price." She showed me the screen. It was a live feed. My younger sister, Sarah, in her London apartment, with a masked man holding a gun to her head. My blood ran cold. "Signed the papers, James," Isabella said softly, the threat hanging heavy in the air. "Or Sarah dies, and then we take the company anyway." My hand trembled as I picked up the pen. My mind was racing, cycling through 1,000 contingency plans, but none of them, not one, had ever accounted for my family being used as leverage. This was a line I never thought they would cross. But just as my pen touched the paper, Frank's voice crackled to life in my hidden earpiece, a lifeline in the darkness. "We have Sarah, James. She's safe. The woman in the video is an actress. Make the call." A wave of relief washed over me. instantly replaced by cold fury. I looked up at Isabella, at the triumphant, predatory smile on her face, and I made my decision. I tore the papers in half. No deal. Her smile vanished, replaced by sheer disbelief and then fury. You're signing your sister's death warrant. No, I said, my voice steady as I pressed the emergency signal to alert Frank's team. I'm signing yours. The safe house door burst open. But it wasn't Frank's team. Standing in the doorway, flanked by his own armed men, was Robert Sterling, the man I thought was dead for 20 years, standing right in front of me, looking exactly as I remembered. "Hello, James," he said, a chillingly familiar smile on his face. You always were terrible at reading the fine print. As his men moved in to restrain me, the terrifying truth hit me like a freight train. This was never just about money or revenge. This was about something much, much bigger, and I was the only one who could stop it. I remember the first time I saw Robert Sterling. His eyes, they had this fire, this intensity that made you believe you could change the world. 20 years later, standing in that dusty, abandoned warehouse, the fire was still there, but now it was burning with something else. Vengeance. He gestured for his armed men to step back, a theatrical performance of civility. 20 years, James, he said, his voice a low growl. He paced like a caged predator. 20 years I've watched you build an empire with Asterisk. My Asterisk technology. Watched you live in Asterisk. My Asterisk house. Watched you marry Asterisk, my Asterisk daughter. His words hit me like a physical blow. I glanced at Isabella, my wife, standing beside him. The resemblance, suddenly so obvious, was like a knife to the gut. Your daughter, I stammered, looking at her. You told me your father was dead. She wouldn't meet my eyes. She had to maintain her cover, Robert said, his voice smooth as silk, just like I had to maintain the illusion of my death. Oh, the bankruptcy was real, James. Thank you for that. But death, that was a strategic retreat. He laid it all out. A grand 20-year conspiracy woven around my life. He knew I was planning to leave his company all those years ago, taking the AI research with me. So he faked his death, vanishing into the shadows to build his own clandestine operation, the Artemis Fund, while Isabella, his own daughter, was sent to infiltrate my life, to become my wife, my closest confidant. But why? Why wait so long? I asked, my mind racing, desperately trying to buy time, praying Frank and his team were closing in. Robert offered a cold, chilling smile. Patience, James. We needed Project Chimera to reach its full potential. You were always a brilliant developer, a true artist with code, but you were terrible at seeing the bigger picture. And then he revealed the true purpose of my life's work. Project Chimera wasn't just an energy management system. It was a master key. Buried deep within its complex algorithms was a backdoor, a hidden protocol that could seize control of every smart grid, every power plant, every single energy system running our technology. Whoever controlled Chimera could bring entire nations to their knees without firing a single shot. You think you've been working in secret? Robert scoffed. The US government has been funding you for years through shell companies. They know exactly what Chimera can do, and they were planning to take it from you the moment it was complete. Isabella finally spoke, her voice steady, betraying no emotion. We're not the villains here, James. We're saving it. My father made a deal with the European Union. They get the technology, we get protection, and you get to disappear. Quietly, Robert glanced at his men, their hands resting on their weapons. Or not so quietly, he added. That's when I saw it. A flicker. The warehouse lights blinked once, then twice. The signal. Frank was here. My heart hammered against my ribs. I'll make you a deal, I said, pushing myself slowly to my feet. Take the technology. I don't care. But leave Technova alone. Let my employees keep their jobs. Robert actually laughed. A harsh, grating sound. You're in no position to negotiate. James, I let a small smile play on my lips. Aren't I? I pressed the emergency beacon hidden in my watch. The police are on their way. So is the FBI. I sent them everything an hour ago. Every piece of data. Every email. Every one of your shell companies. Isabella's composure finally cracked. Her eyes widened in disbelief. He's bluffing, father. But Robert wasn't looking at her. He was studying my face, searching, and seeing the absolute certainty in my eyes. You always were thorough, James, he conceded. Just then, a new voice boomed from hidden speakers, surrounding us. Frank's voice. The building is surrounded. Sterling. Release James, and surrender now. Chaos erupted. I didn't hesitate. I lunged, tackling Robert as Frank's tactical team smashed through the doors, flooding the warehouse. Isabella screamed as agents swarmed her, securing her hands. But Robert was always one step ahead. He twisted a device on his wrist, and the world plunged into absolute darkness. A moment later, emergency lights flickered on, casting long, eerie shadows. Robert's men were already wearing night vision goggles, their green glowing forms moving with deadly precision. Did you really think I'd come unprepared? Robert, I said, the cold metal of a gun pressing against my temple. We're leaving, and you're our insurance policy. They dragged me through the chaos, up to the roof, where a helicopter was waiting, its rotors already spinning. As we lifted off, I saw Frank and his team below, small, helpless figures staring up at us. I was a prisoner, flying towards an unknown fate. Robert stared at me, his eyes burning with a triumphant rage. You took everything from me, James. My company, my legacy, my life. Now, I'm taking everything from you. I met his gaze, my own resolve hardening into steel. Not everything, Primera Said. Calmly, he leaned in, intrigued. And what's that? I looked down at my wrist, at the watch Isabella had given me for our anniversary. A beautiful, expensive token of her love. A token I had discovered weeks ago was a tracking device. A token I had since modified, rerouting its signal, not to Robert's network, but directly to a friend at Interpol. You made one mistake, Robert, I said, a grim satisfaction settling in my chest. You taught me everything you know. The helicopter banked, heading for the international border. The game wasn't over. They had the machine, but I had the key. The final authorization codes were locked in my head, and I would die before I let them win. The helicopter raced toward the Canadian border, slicing through the night sky. In the cockpit, Robert Sterling's triumphant smile gleamed in the dim lights. Isabella sat beside him, her gaze fixed on the darkness outside, avoiding mine completely. Below us, the sprawling lights of Seattle dwindled, swallowed by the vast, inky blackness. I decided to break the suffocating silence. You're wondering about the codes, I said, my voice steady. The final authorization for Project Chimera. Robert's smile tightened, a flicker of irritation in his eyes. You'll give them to us, James. It's only a matter of time. Everyone breaks eventually. I let a small, knowing smile play on my lips. Actually, I said, I don't have them. The helicopter swerved slightly as Robert whipped his head around to stare at me, his disbelief palpable. What do you mean you don't have them? This isn't the time for games. I'm not playing, I explained calmly, enjoying the shift in power. I split the authorization sequence into 3 separate parts. One is with my lawyer, locked away in a secure vault. Another is filed with the SEC, buried under a mountain of digital paperwork. And the third, well, it's with someone you'd never, ever suspect. Isabella finally turned to look at me, her voice trembling, a mix of fear and curiosity. Who, James, who has the final piece? I paused for dramatic effect. My sister's dog sitter, I said. A college student named Maria. Right now, she thinks she's holding a flash drive with encrypted love letters to my ex-girlfriend. Cute, right? Robert's face contorted with pure, unadulterated rage. He slammed his fist against the console. You're lying. You're bluffing. I leaned back in my seat, unfazed. Test it, I challenged. Go on. Try to activate the system without the full sequence. The failsafe I built will corrupt the entire codebase. Decades of work, gone in an instant. Your dream, up in smoke. As Robert frantically started typing commands into his laptop, a desperate attempt to prove me wrong, I finally made eye contact with Isabella. And in that fleeting moment, I saw her, not the corporate spy she'd become, but the girl I'd fallen in love with. The one with bright eyes and a brilliant mind. The illusion shattered as quickly as it appeared. It's over, I told them both, my voice low but firm. The FBI knows everything, and I didn't just send them evidence about the theft of Project Chimera. I sent them proof that you, Robert, faked your death years ago. Proof of the massive insurance fraud you committed. Proof of the 20 years of tax evasion you thought you got away with. Suddenly, the helicopter jerked violently. Red warning lights flashed across the control panel, bathing the cockpit in an ominous glow. "What's happening?" Robert demanded, his voice cracking with panic. "Air traffic control has been tracking us since we took off," I said, a sense of grim satisfaction washing over me. "They're forcing us to land. Game over." I looked out the window and saw them 2 military helicopters, closing in on either side like birds of prey. Below us, the runway lights of a small, isolated airport cut through the darkness. Our final destination. Isabella reached across the space between us and grabbed my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. "I'm sorry, James," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I never wanted it to go this far." Robert, overhearing her, screamed with fury. "Don't you dare! After everything I've done for you, you owe me." The landing was rough, a controlled crash more than a gentle touchdown. The moment the skids hit the tarmac, the helicopter was swarmed. SWAT teams materialized from the shadows, their weapons trained on us. Robert, in a final, desperate act, tried to make a run for it. But he was subdued in seconds, his shouts of rage muffled as he was forced to the ground. Isabella just sat there, tears streaming down her face, looking at me with a devastating mix of regret and something else I couldn't quite name. "I did love you, James. In my own way." I pulled my hand away gently. "Love doesn't include destruction," I said quietly, the words feeling heavy and inadequate. The aftermath unfolded over the next year. It was a media circus. Robert Sterling, the ghost who came back to haunt the tech world, received 25 years in federal prison for a laundry list of crimes. Fraud, corporate espionage, attempted kidnapping. He'd never see the outside of a cell again. Isabella, by cooperating fully with the prosecutors and testifying against Robert, received a significantly reduced sentence. Technova, my company, my life's work, not only recovered but emerged stronger than ever. I implemented new, ironclad security protocols and, more importantly, created an employee trust. It was a measure to ensure that no single person could ever again hold the company's fate in their hands, preventing any future hostile takeovers. But the biggest change, the one that truly upended my world, came 6 months after the trial. I received a letter with a prison postmark. It was from Isabella. In it, she revealed that she was pregnant with our child. She'd found out the day before that fateful helicopter ride. The day she chose to betray me. Today, I sit in my office, the city skyline spread out before me. On my desk is the ultrasound photo she sent, a tiny, blurry image that represents everything complicated about love, loyalty, and betrayal. But looking at it, I also see something else. I see hope. I sold Technova last month. The new owners have pledged to continue developing Project Chimera, but only for peaceful, humanitarian purposes, under strict government oversight. My work there is done. My legacy is secure. As for Isabella, I visit her every week. It's awkward, and it's difficult. We're learning to rebuild a foundation of trust, starting from scratch, piece by painful piece. We're doing it for our child's sake. And maybe, just maybe, for ours too. The empire I built almost destroyed me. It cost me the woman I loved and nearly my freedom. But in the end, it taught me a lesson more valuable than any stock option. It taught me that some things matter more than money or power. Family, redemption, and the incredible, humbling gift of a second chance. Sometimes, the greatest victory isn't about winning the battle, it's about finding peace after the war is over. Friends, if you take just one thing from my story today, let it be this. Your greatest setbacks often contain the seeds of your greatest comebacks. For months after losing everything, I woke up every morning wondering if I had the strength to face another day. The betrayal wasn't just financial, it was emotional, it was spiritual, it was psychological. The person I had built my life with, the person I trusted completely, had become the architect of my destruction. But here's what I learned in those dark moments, those times when I felt completely alone. First, rock bottom became my solid foundation. It's a strange thing to say, but when you have nothing left to lose, you discover who you truly are. I wasn't James Sterling, the billionaire CEO of a tech giant. I wasn't Isabella's husband, part of a power couple. I was just a man with my integrity and my will to survive. And it turned out that was more than enough. When everything else is stripped away, what remains is your core, your unbreakable essence. That's the real you, and that's where true strength lies. Second, forgiveness isn't about them, it's about you. I spent months, so many months, raging. I was angry at Isabella, angry at Robert, angry at the universe for letting this happen. But holding on to that anger was like drinking poison and expecting them to get sick. It was destroying me from the inside out. The day I truly began to heal, the day the light started to creep back in, was the day I understood that forgiveness wasn't about letting them off the hook. It was about setting myself free from their power over my emotions. It was about taking back control of my own heart and mind. Third, I learned that success is what you build, but a legacy is what you leave behind. Technova, my company, made me rich beyond my wildest dreams, but it didn't make me whole. It didn't fill that void inside. What finally brought me a sense of peace, a sense of real accomplishment, was knowing that in the end, I fought for what was right. I protected my employees, the people who had dedicated their lives to our shared vision. I made sure that the technology I created would ultimately be used to help people, not to harm them. That is a legacy I can be proud of, far more than any stock price or market cap. So, to everyone watching right now, anyone who is facing their own betrayal, their own business collapse, their own broken trust die, want you to hear me clearly. You are not what happened to you. You are how you choose to respond to what happened to you. The world, the media, maybe even people close to you, will try to define you by your losses. Don't let them. Your value is not in your bank account, your job title, or even in your relationships. Your true value is in that unbreakable core of who you are, the part of you that no betrayal can touch, no business failure can diminish, and no heartbreak can ever destroy. I'm rebuilding my life now, piece by piece. It's a slow process, a humbling one. I'm not trying to build back the empire I lost. That's not the goal anymore. I'm focused on building the man I want to become, a better father to my unborn child, who deserves a dad who is present and whole, a better friend to those who stood by me when I had nothing left to offer, a better human being who understands that the true measure of success isn't what you acquire, but what you overcome. It's about the character you forge in the fires of adversity. Your pain today is preparing you for your purpose tomorrow. Every struggle you're facing right now is strengthening you for the comeback story that is waiting to be written. Every betrayal is a harsh but powerful lesson, teaching you what truly matters in this life. It clarifies your values. It shows you who your real friends are. And it reveals the strength you never knew you had. So please, get up. Wipe the dust off your shoulders. Look in the mirror and remember who you are. The phoenix must burn to rise from the ashes. Your fire is coming. And when it does, when you emerge from this, you will soar higher than you ever dreamed possible. Because you will be flying with wings forged in resilience and wisdom. Thank you for listening to my story. Now go write yours. If this message resonated with you, please consider subscribing for more content on turning adversity into your greatest advantage. I appreciate you all.